How to teach your kids about grief. This week, a good friend of mine who I grew up with and went to school with lost his dad. And we've been friends for a really long time. We've been friends since we were about 12 years old. And for over 20 years, we've been good mates. We lived together. We were in a day boarding school. It's part of the school. It's day boarding, you go home on the weekends. And we lived together for 5 years doing that. And we're always close. He lost his dad recently, and I was up back near home where I'm originally from to go to the funeral. He had also supported me during the time when my dad passed last year, and that meant a lot to me. And I knew that I wanted to do that for him and for my other friends as well when that time, inevitably comes. Him and his dad were really close, and I know that leading up to this time for him and this moment, I had a chat with him about grief, about how I had a few things that I thought could really help him with his grief, because inevitably grief is there and it's tough and it's not pretty and it's ugly and angry sometimes, and sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's really hard. And I just wanted to help him with a few things there. And he's got a couple of young kids also. And I wanted to make this video because I think that grief is a largely skipped over topic when it comes to parenting. Parents are really well-intentioned. Parents don't want to scare their kids. They don't want to frighten them or make them sad. However, grief is all of those things, and it's a part of life. But it can be hard to communicate that. A lot of the time, parents will actually end up walking out of those conversations having avoided much of it, having avoided the gravity or the enormity of grief, because grief is a big, complicated, complex topic and part of life. But it's really important that we communicate it well, because otherwise our kids are going in there with no grid. Parents can often be too afraid to fully explain it for fear for the kids, not wanting to make them sad or upset, and sometimes sugarcoating it also, which we don't want to do either. Over the last week, I've had the same conversation multiple times, leading up to the funeral and even during the wake, about grief and about the complexities of grief and how it's really important for kids to kind of understand it as best that they can. And that's why I wanted to make this video. So here are some things to remember when explaining grief to your kids. Number one, be honest. Be honest with your kids when it comes to grief. Dishonesty is going to harm them further. You do not need to sugarcoat it, nor should you. You can put it in perspective with your worldview, and it can make a lot of sense. It's not an easy topic to explain, and it's okay to not have all the answers, but that's also okay to explain too. You do not need to know everything. You can just be honest with them in every part of it that you're involved in, and everything that you do understand or even don't. Part of being honest with them is letting them know that it's a part of life. Grief will happen in their lifetime. Grief will happen to them because they know people, because they know situations. And grief comes up in all of those things. It's a part of life. And there is good and bad in life. There are easy times, there are hard times. There are happy and sad, etc. Cliches and no cliches. There's all of the above. So it's important to let them know that there are difficult parts of life that are part of it. You can't get around it. You can't avoid it. It is part of life. Some things in life are also neither good nor bad. Grief is both a good and bad thing. It's uncomfortable. And that's the thing. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just uncomfortable. It's just hard. It's not something to be afraid of or avoid. And that's the next one. Grief is unavoidable. You can't get around grief. It will happen in your life. There will be situations that come up. You will lose people that you care about. You will lose relationships. You will lose possessions that you've got a really big affinity to. You've got scenarios and situations that you've loved. You could grieve leaving school. That's your life for 12 years. Grief is unavoidable, so you may as well lean into it. I talk to a lot of people about this, is that grief needs to be leaned into to get the most out of. to get most of the inflammation out of grief. Lean into it. Let yourself cry. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself be frustrated or confused. Let it out in ways that are both safe for you and for the people around you as well. It's hard, but it's not something that we can take out on other people. That's got nothing to do with them. That's not a fair exchange. That's not a fair thing to do or a fair way to treat people. Don't take out your pain on others. Communicate the pain. You want to cry about your grandmother having passed? Cry. That's fine. That's normal. Of course you'd be sad. She's your grandma. Of course you'd be upset when you lose something or someone that you care about. That's the most normal thing possible. So don't be ashamed of it. Just lean into it. That's fine and normal. The longer you avoid it, the more it hurts you. The longer you pretend it isn't there, the more it hurts you. The bigger that wound becomes. The more fear you've got around feeling that feeling. You've built fear on top of a feeling now. We don't want that. We don't want to fear being sad for losing someone we care about. That's just what happens when we lose someone we care about. So lean into it. Allow yourself to feel sad. Your kids can feel sad. That's normal. They will normally feel sad when they lose someone they care about. Grief will come up randomly sometimes. Grief can look how you expect it to, which is ugly crying and sad or angry or depressed to an extent. Grief can be all of those things. It will come up at times that make sense. When you're visiting your loved one in the hospital, when you're visiting their grave, when you're talking about them around the table. That makes total sense. You don't have to avoid their memory or anything like that. You can lean into it. But those are the times that it makes sense on paper that it would come up, that you're grieving that person, that you're feeling those feelings. But grief also comes up randomly. It can surprise attack you. Sneak attacks of grief. Some of these sneak attacks can also be conventional. For example, I was at the gym with a friend, and when I was leaving, it was about a 30-minute drive home. And I thought, oh, who can I call on the way home just to have a chat? And I'm like, oh, I'll call Dad. And Dad had passed 6 months before that. But I was used to that being a reaction and a thing that I would do. And I got a little bit sad because I'm like, oh, bugger, that's right. And now I'm sad. That makes sense. It's a sneak attack, but that grief makes sense. Now, a more random sneak attack happened to me the other day also. About a week or two ago, I was going through the sauce aisle at a supermarket. And I was walking through, I was looking for sauce, and I saw that my favorite hot chili oil was on sale. And I thought to myself, oh, awesome, I might get some. And then I remembered that I had just gotten Dad into that chili oil about 3 months before he passed. And I got sad that I had just gotten my dad into chili oil and he wasn't here anymore. So I was sad about chili oil. And chili oil was the doorway to my grief that day, which is very weird. And I saw the funny side in that, and I still do, that chili oil and my dad's grief were walking hand in hand. But that is part of grief also. It comes up sometimes. There are links. There are links to that person, to that situation. And sometimes it's really noticeable links. It's like you go and visit his favorite restaurant, or you do that thing that they love so much, or you go and see their family. And sometimes it's walking past chili oil in an aisle. It doesn't make sense unless you really dissect it, but there are links to that person, and maybe you haven't grieved all those links because there's many. Grief is complex. There are many layers to grief. Some days you will be sad about that person. Some days you'll really miss them. Some days you'll be angry about the situation. You'll be frustrated at multiple different things to do with that situation. But then there are days where you think about them and you're okay. You don't feel strongly one way or the other. You're not grieving. You're not happy. You're just neutral. You're fine. This doesn't mean you're cold. This doesn't mean you're unfeeling. And it doesn't mean that you're fully over grief. It doesn't mean that you fully completed grief. It's just on that day, you're okay. And maybe you'll have more of those days the more you grieve. the more you lean into it, the more you process your feelings of grief, the more days you'll eventually get of ease from grief, that you can just enjoy the memory of the person. And there will be days where it feels raw and it hurts. It doesn't mean you're stuck if you do get sad, and it doesn't mean you're a cold person if you don't get sad. My nonna passed 17 years ago this year. When I remember her fondly. Most of the time, I'm okay. I remember leaning into the grief at the time. I was crying in the hospital with her. I cried at the funeral. I think of her fondly, and there are tears leading up to her death and around the funeral. Because I've leaned into this, most of the time I can just remember her fondly and just enjoy the fact that I've always been loved by her and loved her and known her. And what a nice person she always was to me and my family. But then sometimes, totally unprovoked, I'll remember her and I will get sad. And I'll think, oh man, I really wish she could have met my kids, because how loving she would have been with them, how affectionate and just beautiful she would be with them, because she was like that with me. And then amplifying that to your grandkids, I just know that she would be such a great great-grandmother. And that makes me sad when I think of that. But most of the time, I'm okay. But then some days, there are days that I feel sad and I miss her. And that's normal. Grief is complex. It comes up sometimes and it doesn't others. But we have to process it regardless. You can be at peace about where the person is, but still be sad that they're not here. Now, this concept I've talked multiple times to a couple of people in my life since the death of my father. One is my mum, and one is my youngest son. I remember when my youngest son talked to me about Nono when he passed. And I remember he was really upset, and he said, I didn't want Nono to go to heaven. He was just really sad that he was now in heaven and not with us. And as Christians, that's what we have. We have the knowledge that this person is with God now, is with Jesus, and is not in pain, and is enjoying being there. And even though they're not with us, they're enjoying being there. And that gives peace as well to myself and to other Christians. However, I talked to my son and I said, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to be sad that he's not here. And you can feel at peace knowing where he is. And you can also feel sad that he's not here with you. And the same thing with my mum. My mum's very stoic. She's a very strong woman. She's a very gracious woman and kind, but she doesn't give much away. And with my mum, I'll talk to her, and I'll try and talk to her about grief and everything. And her and my dad were with each other for over 40 years, close to 50. And when I talk to her, she's a very strong, God-fearing lady who loves the Lord and is very grounded in that, which is amazing. And I just try to talk to mum and see how she's going with everything. And she'll tell me, she'll go, oh, I'm so happy that your dad accepted God and that he's there now. And I said, yes, that's awesome. I am very glad too, and that is the most important thing, and that's amazing. However, how are you going that he's not here? How are you going that the person that you were next to for so long is not next to you anymore, is not around the breakfast table, is not doing those activities or those walks with you, any of that? Because, and this is the same thing I said to my son, you can be at peace knowing where they are and still be sad that they're not here with you. You can feel both. It's okay to feel both. It's okay to know one thing's good, but also know that because of that good thing, I'm not with them. That's okay. It's okay to be sad and to miss them. You can be sad missing out on a bunch of different things with them. However, you can also feel at peace knowing where they are. You can also be at peace knowing that they're not in pain. Grief isn't exclusive to death. Grief can come up in most situations. A lot of situations that end. Obviously, when we lose a family member, when we lose a friend or a partner, the grief there is gigantic. It's massive. Grief when you lose a dog, also part of the family. It all makes sense. But grief can also look like losing something that you care about. People could lose a scholarship and you would cry and you would be sad. That is grief. People could lose a job that they loved. People could lose an opportunity. As kids, and some adults too, you can cry and you can grieve when you lose an outfit that you've outgrown. You may grow and not be able to wear that thing anymore, those shoes anymore, whatever. And obviously, this is something that have come up in my life raising 5 kids, is that kids will get really sad or people will get really sad. That's grieving that part of not having that there anymore. You're not able to do that anymore. You're not able to, use those things or be with that person anymore. Grief can come up in different ways. Some people cry when they leave school. They love it, the dynamic, whatever it may be. You can do it when you lose a job, when you leave a job. Grief comes up. Grief is just the process you go through when you lose something. So it will come up in random times. Grief can start before the end of that person. This is something that I've figured out from personal experience, is that when you know someone is very unwell, or when you know something's coming to an end, or that person might be coming to an end here on earth, you can start the grieving process then. It's not like it backs up the whole time until they pass. It's not like it's just building up, and the day they die, boom, you get hit by it. You're sad now. Nope. Grief comes early. Grief preps it all. It preps the oven for sadness and for losing that person. You start becoming aware. You're like, oh, they're not getting better. They're really struggling. It's that thing where you start thinking about who they are to you, what they mean to you. And because of who they are to you and what they mean to you, you get sad. Because you know you're leaving that situation. You might be leaving your hometown and you never wanted to move. And you get sad before you've moved. A friend's moving away and you get sad before they move because you think about the fact that you're losing them. You get angry about it, you get sad about it, everything. Grief can start early, and it usually does. When my nonna was sick, she had a stroke, and I remember being at work and I got the call and I got a colleague to take over from me, which was great. I was a youth worker at the time, and I went to the hospital and I saw her and she looked really peaceful. No lines in her face, just lying there. And I remember how hard that was to see her, even though she looked really at peace, and seeing my dad upset as well. And I remember I was sad straight away. I was sad on the way there. I was way worse when I got there and I saw her. And that grieving process started right there. And I was just leaning into it and being sad because I was sad, because I was scared for her, because I didn't want her to go. And it started early. It didn't start when she died. And I know this is a logical sort of thing that you kind of know it when it happens. You go, oh yeah, I cried earlier. I was upset earlier. I was scared earlier. I was all these things. But when you break it down and really look at it, you go, oh, grief starts early. Grief doesn't start with just the event. It's the lead up to the event, especially when you know it's happening. Obviously, if it's a shock thing and a sudden thing, boom, it happens right then. But the lead up to when you know it's happening or it's going to happen, that's when it starts. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to miss someone or something that you care about. It's the most normal thing in the world. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you miss that person? Why wouldn't you be sad? That's okay. Comfort your kids, letting them know that it's normal, letting them know these different factors. There's so many different things to process and to remember about grief. However, ultimately, it just helps if they lean into it. It helps if they understand that if they lean into it, they feel those things, that that's what they need to do to heal. Because these are wounds. These are hurts. These are fears. These are all these different things. These are attachments to these people. And they will heal. It will not be as hard to go there and just to remember them fondly. We'll get a little bit sad or any of these different things, but it's normal and it's part of the process. Remember just to be there for your kids and help them through the grief, and make sure you're doing the same for yourself. Because if you don't grieve and you put it off, you're showing them exactly how to not do it. So you got to do it as well. Anyway, that's me. I hope it helped. And I hope that if you are going through one of these situations, that this helps you and it helps your family. Take care.